Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at the first Italian troops to be sent to the Eastern Front and their actions as a semi-independent unit. A little disclaimer before we start: I will have a very hard time with Russian names in this episode, so please cut me some slack. The CSIR, Corpo Spedizione Italiano in Russia, or Italian Expeditionary Corps in Russia, was a corps-sized grey unit of the Regio Esercito sent to the Eastern Front in 1941 to aid the Germans with Operation Barbarossa. By all intents and purposes, Germany did not fight the Red Army alone. Hungary and Romania sent tens of thousands of troops to fight in Operation Barbarossa, mostly in the Ukraine region, while under the command of Army Group South. Additionally, the Germans could count upon various foreign volunteer units such as the Spanish Division Azul, the French Volunteers Legion, the Croat Legion, and a horde of Slovak, Flemish, Belgian, Dutch, Baltic, and Scandinavian troops. The CSIR's birth can be directly linked to Mussolini's own ambitions to rescue Italy from its subordinate status and to make things even with Italy, since German troops were fighting in Africa at that point. The participation of the CSIR in the Soviet Union would be a way to match the efforts of the Africa Corps. The CSIR was made up of the best troops Italy could spare at that point in the war. It comprised the 9th Pasubio and 52nd Torino Infantry Divisions, the 3rd Celere Semi-Motorized Division, comprised of 1 Bersaglieri Light Infantry Regiment, 2 Cavalry Regiments, the Savoia Cavalleria and the Lancieri di Novara, and a detachment of L3 Tankettes and a Cavalry-Tailed Artillery Regiment. The 63rd CCNN Assault Legion Tagliamento, which was meant to represent the Italian Fascist Party in its fight against Bolshevism and responded directly to the CSIR High Command, and 3 Regia Aeronautica Reconnaissance Squadrons and 4 fighter squadrons that also responded directly to the High Command. Altogether, the CSIR comprised 62,000 men, 82 planes, 220 artillery pieces, 92 anti-tank cannons, 4,600 mules and horses, 5,500 vehicles, and 60 L333 Tankettes. The corps was initially commanded by General Francesco Zingales. The CSIR departed by train from Italy starting on July 10, 1941, arriving in Hungary and continuing on foot to Romania. During this initial transport phase, Zingales fell ill and had to be replaced by General Giovanni Messe. The CSIR was already plagued by a shortage of fuel and motorized equipment throughout the march from Hungary to Romania. The CSIR fought under Army Group South and upon arrival was immediately integrated into the 11th Army, which could count upon an Hungarian Army Corps, the 3rd Romanian Army, and the 11th and 30th German Army Corps. Upon arrival of the CSIR, the Wehrmacht was already fighting to trap Soviet troops between the Dniester and Bug rivers. The 9th Pasubio was the first Italian division to arrive at the front and immediately entered combat. On August 10th, the 4,500-strong Pasubio vanguard moved to Vozniesnek, engaging some retreating Red Army troops, while the rest of the division was slowed down by torrential rains and muddy terrain. Italian troops managed to fight off the Soviets and capture the villages of Pokrovke and Jasna Poliana, denying the enemy the last bridgehead on the Bug. On August 14th, Army Group South Command transferred the CSIR to the 1st Panzer Group von Kleist. It's vital to note that the unmotorized CSIR could not keep up with the fast, maneuverable German panzer troops at that point. However, due to a translation error, the Germans believed the CSIR to be fully motorized and capable of fast movements. That being said, the CSIR still mostly managed to fulfill its objectives successfully. Von Kleist's objective was to meet up with Guderian's panzers on the other side of the Dnieper River to complete the encirclement around Kiev. As such, the Pasubio, Celere, and the Torino's artillery were all moved to the right shore of the Dnieper, arriving there on the last days of August. It will take until September the 5th for the rest of the Torino to join the CSIR on the Dnieper. German and Italian forces started to cross the Dnieper on September 18th. The encirclement went smoothly for the CSIR, even though most Italian troops were bogged down by harsh terrain. Von Kleist, von Mackensen and von Schwelde were all impressed by the actions of the Regio Esercito throughout the whole operation. Comes October, and Hitler wants to deliver the final crushing blow of the year to the Red Army. Unfortunately for the CSIR, this final blow required mobile, well-equipped divisions, and the Regio Esercito High Command fully knew that the status of their units wasn't on par with Hitler's expectations, to say the least. Messe tried to make an appeal to von Kleist, asking for more vehicles, fuel and support equipment, but all his appeals went completely unheard. Instead, on October the 1st, the CSIR received orders to regroup after Dnipropetrovsk and prepared to support the 3rd Panzer Corps. The objectives now were the Pavlograd and Ulyanovka beachheads. The CSIR was once again successful in its operations, even though most of its units were still bogged down and struggling to move at all. Initially, the 20th Bersaglieri Battalion managed to clear and capture Ulyanovka, allowing the 3rd Bersaglieri Battalion to deploy on the Volcha. Pavlograd itself was to be attacked by the 198th German Infantry Division, supported by elements of the 63rd Tagliamento Assault Legion. The assault was incredibly successful, managing to conquer all objectives, pushing the Soviets on the other side of the Volcha River and capturing thousands of POWs and a huge stockpile of enemy equipment. The next major objective for the CSIR was Stalino, today Donetsk, an important industrial center. The unit needed to act following a strict schedule set by the German High Command, in the hopes of finally crushing all resistance on the southern front. At this point, the two major players in the CSIR were the 9th Pasubio and the 3rd Cellare, with the 52nd Torino still trudging behind due to a constant and oppressive lack of fuel. On October the 12th, the 3rd Cellare occupied Novo-Nikolaevka and kept on marching forward, dividing itself in two columns. On the left, the Lancieri di Novara and Savoia Cavalleria cavalry regiments will support the German 49th Alpine Army Corps, while two Bersaglieri battalions will move to the right and keep fighting the Soviet rear guards. After a series of major skirmishes and cavalry charges, the CSIR made it to Stalino, and the final attack on the city was carried out by the 3rd Bersaglieri Regiment, employing modern, small teams combined arms tactics akin to the German colleagues. The assault was a success. By now, the Red Army had occupied the Donetsk basin, fiercely preparing for another fight and seemingly unwilling to retreat any further. Additionally, being in a densely populated industrial area of the country, the invading armies could expect a much higher concentration of partisan forces, which had to be dealt with and pacified swiftly. For this task, the CSIR chose the 63rd Tagliamento, while the other divisions prepared to occupy Gorlovka, Nikitovka and the Trudovaya station. The fight for these settlements was extremely intense and often devolved into close quarters, house-by-house crawls. The CSIR managed to regroup with the 52nd Torino, conquer all its objectives, and settle down between Chasepovka and Rasipnaya. The Torino division had sustained major losses, among them Deputy Division Commander General De Caloris, and the Pasubio and Cellare divisions were also depleted. Weather conditions were terrible as well, with an early, harsh winter making things even direr to Italian and German troops alike. On Christmas Eve 1941, after a series of successful minor counterattacks, the Red Army launched a vast offensive, focusing on sectors held by the 63rd Tagliamento and 3rd Cellare, with the intent of isolating the CSIR and cutting them off from the 1st Panzer Army to force a disastrous retreat. The 52nd and 9th divisions were also attacked by Soviet cavalry troops, but eventually managed to drive the attackers off with artillery and small arms fire without taking major casualties. However, the Soviets were still focusing on breaking the Tagliamento and Cellare, even forcing them back to Malo-Orlovka, where the 18th Bersaglieri Battalion and the 5th Cavalry Towed Artillery Battery, who at that point had run out of ammo and decided to hold their ground and join their comrades in a hand-to-hand fight, successfully fought against two Red Army battalions. The same kind of pressure was experienced by the 20th and 25th Bersaglieri battalions. After the intervention of the 52nd Torino and 9th Pasubio, supported by Fallschirmjäger troops, the enemy was pushed back and all lost ground was retaken in a series of successful counterattacks. In January 1942, the depleted CSIR sent a small contingent led by Colonel Musino to aid the Germans, who were at that moment occupied by the Soviet Izjum offensive that saw the 6th and 17th armies under constant pressure, forcing them to retreat behind the Bereka and Samara rivers. The Musino contingent was nothing more than two engineer battalions, a group of dismounted tankers, and a 75/27 artillery battery. They were mostly tasked with reconnaissance and patrol duties, but also saw combat. During this period, the CSIR saw 101 dead, 238 wounded, 28 missing in actions, and 7 people froze to death. Combat continued until March 1942, when melting snows made the terrain too muddy to carry on operations. The CSIR took this resting opportunity to bolster its ranks with several reinforcing battalions. On May 11th, the Red Army launched an unsuccessful attack on Kharkov, trying to prevent a German counteroffensive. After repelling the attack, the 17th Army and 3rd Panzer Corps, supported by the CSIR, advanced, managing to destroy 2 Soviet armies. The last independent action of the CSIR, the defense of Greco-Timofeevsky, was on May 27, 1942, a day before the end of the Izjum offensive. On July 9, 1942, the CSIR was renamed 35th Army Corps and was transferred to the 8th Italian Army, called ARMIR, Italian Army in Russia. Up to that point, the 62,000-strong CSIR had suffered 1,600 deaths, 5,300 wounded, 400 missing in action, and 3,600 frostbite cases. The 35th Army Corps went on to fight on the Eastern Front until the end of March 1943, when they were called back and stationed around Bolzano prior to the September 8th armistice. And that was the story of the Italian army on the Eastern Front from 1941 to 1943. Thank you very much for watching till the end, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe as it helps the channel immensely. Again, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.